Hey guys, welcome back to Caffeine and Crime. I hope you have your coffee or whatever caffeine and you're ready for season 1, episode 2. Gosh, I'm so nervous to film these, and it's not so much like the filming as it is the audio for the actual podcast. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like my nerves of starting something new. I've been on YouTube for almost 2 years now, and it's still it's not the fact that I'm in front of a camera since this is on YouTube, but it's the fact that it's also a podcast that I think still has my nerves in a ball. Hopefully it's something that I will grow out of real fast like I did with YouTube. But today's episode, and I am going to be sticking with seasons and episodes, I hope you guys like that about it, but this way I can kind of bounce back and forth, stay very consistent for a while, take a break if I need to, and start up another whole season, and maybe even have themed seasons. I don't know. I mean, serial killer season 2, maybe. But today I have a story for you guys that happened in 2000. So we're gonna go back a little bit, not that far though. And this is a story that I did not grow up knowing about or anything like that. I never found the story until, or this case, until I was older and I was really into true crime and that type of ordeal when I stumbled across this. But this case has stuck with me since I first read about it, because I was just oh my gosh, this just sounds like a freaking movie. It doesn't even sound like something that could possibly happen in real life. It's honestly like if Stephen King and Nicholas Sparks got together and wrote a book together that was twisted with some romance there. It would literally be that. So we're going to get into this story. I hope you guys like how I have this laid out. I'm going to try to do this with every single case and kind of tell you it in a story type of way, and then break it all down, tell you guys the verdict and my final thoughts. So this takes place in Tallahassee, Florida. It was Saturday, December 16th, 2000, and Jerry Michael Williams, he is known by Mike, so that is what I will be calling him. He loves duck hunting. He is a real estate appraiser, 31 years old, was married to his high school sweetheart. He was the football player, she was a cheerleader. They were the perfect couple, and they had a little girl together. It was actually his 6th year wedding anniversary this day, and he wanted to go duck hunting that morning. So he told his wife, Denise Williams, that he was gonna go duck hunting, but he would be back by noon because they had plans that evening to go away to a bed and breakfast to spend the weekend there for their anniversary. Mike had even told his boss about these plans, and he told him how he was going to kick back and relax and have a good time. So yeah, he told Denise he would be back by noon so that it wouldn't spoil their plans, but he never came back. Denise began to worry. She started calling all their friends and family saying, he never came back. We have plans this evening. It's our anniversary. Have you seen him? That kind of ordeal. And then that evening, a search started happening with their friends and family. They got together in groups and went out looking for him. Even that same night, Board Wildlife Commission was contacted, and they even had groups of people out searching as well. His Bronco was found at a landing at Lake Jackson. He told his wife he was going to be fishing at Lake Seminole. I don't know this area very well. From what I've seen from the little maps and that type of ordeal is that Lake Jackson was right connected to Lake Seminole. So I guess he parked at Lake Jackson, got in his boat, and went over to Lake Seminole where he was going to go duck hunting. People thought maybe that his boat had hit a stump, or maybe he had fell overboard, and he wore these really heavy waders, so they thought maybe he had drowned or fell underwater because of how heavy they were. A lot of statements that I've seen around that time was people were very confused because they said the water at that particular place, which this lake was pretty much like a swamp, and it was alligator infested. I mean, we are talking about Florida, so there was alligators, but at the same time, this is December 16th, there was like a cold front coming on, so a lot of people argue that alligators wouldn't be out because it was colder, and it just didn't really make a lot of sense, but still this place was alligator infested. There was people on foot, on boats, and helicopters, and everything looking for Mike. But when the rain hit and then the cold front I was talking about came on, the search had to stop. The following morning, as they were out looking again, they found Mike's boat 75 yards from his Bronco, which is very strange to me. I don't understand why they wouldn't have found it the night before if they had found his Bronco. I feel like wouldn't they have found it during that search in that evening? I don't know if they just didn't go that far out. Was it too dark for them to see? I don't know. So at this point of finding his Bronco and his boat without Mike, the search for a rescue turned into a recovery operation with search dogs and these like poles or rods that they use in water to kind of search lower parts of the water, because I guess even though the water was pretty shallow, I guess in some areas it was a little bit deep enough to not be able to see through the swamp. And so these poles and rods made it a little bit easier for them to kind of mess around at the bottom to see if they felt anything. They did actually mark off an area in this swamp at Lake Seminole that they thought had some suspicion like something might be there, but it was never like brought to anybody else's attention. They never went back and searched it. It wasn't enough to make them want to search. I feel like they just thought we would have seen something, so they moved on. There were divers, more helicopters, and everybody kept searching for 2 weeks. When nothing was found, everyone assumed that he had died from drowning and that alligators had ate him, which is so disturbing to hear, like, as his family and friends, and it's just so disturbing in general. But again, to the people who argued that the alligators really wouldn't be out, and also the issue of an alligator wouldn't have swallowed him whole. Now, I'm no wildlife expert. I'm not experienced with any of that, but every single thing that I've looked up about it says it would be impossible for them not to find a part of him. Loyal friends and family were still looking in February, which was 2 months later. After all of the searching, the only thing that was found was his hat that they assumed was his. Mike's mom, Cheryl, never gave up. This poor lady went everywhere. She posted pictures of him on every street corner. She went to newspaper after newspaper making articles with his picture and "Have you seen my son?" And every single person she bumped into on the street, she would tell them the story of her son. It got to the point that her daughter-in-law, Denise, Mike's wife, got very irritated and frustrated and said, "I need some privacy. I need some space because I need to heal from this. You know, he was my husband that I lost, and I need this to go." There is no proof of this, but Cheryl, Mike's mom, does say that Denise threatened her and said, "If you do anything to get a criminal investigation going, you are going to lose access to Ansley," which was Mike and Denise's daughter, Cheryl's granddaughter. She asked Denise, what if it was Ansley? And Denise replied, "That's different. I have to go on with my life. I don't ever want to hear his name or see his face." Despite that, she never stopped searching for her son or answers. She, again, just spread the word everywhere she went, took out newspaper articles, and I literally mean she did this for years. Years and years. I feel like with Denise, I feel like she was just fed up. Everywhere she went, people were questioning her. "I'm so sorry," you know, the grieving of it and everything, and she just needed some peace. And although it is rather strange behavior, I think to a certain point, I think somebody could get to their breaking point and be like, enough is enough. So a lot of the suspicion around her and everything kind of subsided, and the only thing that you've seen about Mike was from Mike's mom, Cheryl, posting about him. And by posting, again, I mean putting up flyers with his face on them, putting out or taking out newspaper articles and that type of ordeal at that time, because again, this was in 2000. This all happened on December 16th. Exactly 6 months later, there was a fisherman who was out in the water fishing and around that area, and he found a set of waders. And everybody in that area kind of knew the story about Mike, so he automatically called it in, and they happened to be waders that looked just like the waders Mike had. Again, the weird part was that there was no rips or tears or anything on them to make you think that an alligator had anything to do with Mike's disappearance. But because of this, the search had started up. There was a lot of suspicion, and people wanted to get to the bottom of it. If he was not alive, they wanted to find a body. A group of people on a boat actually went back out to the place that they marked suspicion with those rods that I mentioned earlier. And in that area, they found a jacket, a flashlight, and a hunting license that belonged to Mike Williams. The weird part, again, there's something weird about each step of this case, but the weird part about it this time was that everything was pristine, intact, nothing torn from alligators, no mud, no algae, but this had been in a swamp for 6 months. So it kind of makes you think a little bit, wouldn't there be more to it than just that? And if they were just right there, why weren't they found from the beginning? But unfortunately, Mike wasn't recovered. The case went cold and he was still a missing person. Around the same time, which was 6 months into the search, Denise goes to court and she files for a death certificate for Mike and claims life insurance. You know, Denise was a stay-at-home mom. I don't think that they were doing so well off. Even Mike's boss had even said that he was very successful family-wise and money-wise, but prior to Mike's disappearance, maybe a few months, Mike had confided in him that they were having some issues going on in their marriage and that a lot of them had to do with financial issues. The hard part for Denise was that Florida has a state law that a missing person cannot legally have a death certificate for up to 5 years without a body. But somehow Denise managed to get by with the evidence of waders, a flashlight, a jacket, and a hunting license. Jerry Michael Williams was declared dead by accidental drowning, and Denise Williams did get the life insurance policies. There were actually 3 life insurance policies placed on Mike, and one happened to be filed 6 months before he disappeared by his best friend, Brian Winchester. Brian Winchester and Mike had been friends since high school. They actually went to high school together. They were best friends, and they both married their high school sweethearts. And the 4 of them would actually get together and go on double dates and stuff like that all the time. They would have family game nights. They were very acquainted with each other, the 4 of them. Brian was also part of the group of people who continue to search for Mike all the time. Brian went under a lot of suspicion during this time because there was talk around this small town that before Mike had even disappeared, there may have been an affair going on between Brian and Denise, Mike's wife. It made things look very suspicious, very sketchy, but there was no evidence of any of it. There was no evidence of anything happening to Mike besides falling out of his boat and drowning or even being eaten by alligators, so they said. Sadly, time kind of just went on, and the only one who didn't give up hope was Cheryl, Mike's mom, who continued to post flyers, to put articles in newspapers, and life just kind of went on for everyone else. In 2003, Brian Winchester and Kathy Winchester got a divorce. So this is the other couple, Brian being Mike's best friend and Kathy being Brian's wife. That was his high school sweetheart. Him and Kathy divorced. Kathy is a strange one for me because Kathy never really, I feel like she took offense to Brian a lot because of his choices, but not really Denise. Kathy and Denise stayed best friends from high school until prior to all of this. And so far that the rumors of Brian and Denise having an affair was actually caused by Kathy, who was actually getting together with both of them. So there was sexual relations with Kathy, Brian, and Denise together that turned into the affair that people were talking about. So I think that's why people kind of took it lightly and just said, okay, these people are just crazy. They want the attention. Let's move on. She does stay friends with Denise, which is also pretty strange because right after Kathy and Brian get a divorce, Brian starts seeing Mike's widow, Denise. And this really stirs up some suspicion. Law enforcement actually get back into the case once again, and they start dragging up any type of phone records of Brian Winchester and Denise Williams from back at that time. But being 2000, there wasn't anything that they could really drag back up from that time. There was no luck with that whatsoever, but they were able to come across those life insurance policies that were taken out by Brian Winchester, who worked in insurance. And they had figured up the policies that were taken out and figured up that Denise actually got $1.5 million for Mike's death and life insurance. And this is the end of episode 2, part 1. If you would like to check out the second part, I will have it linked on the screen for you to finish out episode 2 of Denise Williams.